Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 30th of March, 2023. Right, everyone, let's get into it. So apologies for missing yesterday's episode, everyone. Just unfortunately ran out of time to record one, but of course I'm back today, and we'll be covering the last 2 days worth of news. So let's jump into it. So the official announcement about the Shapella, I should say, hard fork or network upgrade here that enables withdrawals on the Ethereum network was put out by the Ethereum Foundation. You can go check out the blog post for yourself, of course. It's got relevant links to everything that you need, including client releases. And just a reminder for those who haven't upgraded yet, be sure to do so before April 12th, because that is when the upgrade is scheduled. And if you don't upgrade, you'll be left behind, and your validators will technically be offline if you're a solo staker, and that means that you will be get attestation not penalties, but you'll miss attestations, and of course you'll get an activity leak because of that. Now, I believe the rocket pool upgrade, if you're running mini pools, is going to be out shortly. Definitely before Shapella, from my understanding. So nothing to do just yet. But yeah, if you're a solo staker, be sure to upgrade. And if you're just running an Ethereum full node, you need to upgrade as well. And remember, you need to upgrade both your consensus layer client and your execution layer client, which, as I said, are linked in this blog post. And very close now, 30th of March, so just about 12 days, I believe, or about 13 days until this goes live, which is really exciting considering that it's already been almost 7 months since the merge. For anyone that hasn't been keeping track, yeah, it's already been almost 7 months since the merge. And I remember I did say that after the merge, we would have this fork happening within 6 to 12 months. I gave quite a wide range because traditionally with Ethereum network upgrades, they take longer than we expect, but it seems to be almost right on target. I think they wanted to do it in 6 months after the merge, and we got it done in 7, so a vast improvement over the timing of other network upgrades, which is very promising for the future upgrades coming, such as Cancun, which includes ERP-4844. If we can get that delivered, 6 months after Shapella here, it means we'll get it delivered this year, which is obviously super exciting. So I'm rooting for that, of course. But yeah, as I said, you can go check out the blog post for yourself and upgrade your nodes if you haven't yet. Speaking of withdrawals, Terence from the Off-Chain Labs team here, one of the developers behind the Prism client, put together a thread where he said, Ethereum validator withdrawals when to submit. In this thread, we'll go over when is the best time to submit your validator withdrawal, given various conditions. Now, I did speak about that tool the other day or a couple of days ago, that Beacon Chain has out that allows you to basically submit your kind of withdrawal credential change, I should say, and be part of a batch that hopefully gets included within the first block post Shapella, so that in case your credentials were compromised, or your seed was compromised or anything like that, you are able to change it before the attacker does, being able to change your withdrawal address before the attacker does. So Terence talks a bit about that in this thread, which you can check out in the YouTube description below. Beacon Chain. The Beacon Chain website has a bunch of changes that they've made that they've listed in this thread here. One of those changes was that tool that I was talking about, and there's also more notification options for validators. I actually use this and it works really well. Whenever I get the new block proposed notification, I get obviously super excited about that, and I'm like, oh, okay. And it tells you the amount that it's proposed for as well, which is super exciting. But yeah, if you're wondering what new features they have, you can go check out this thread here. And on top of that, I hear that they've got like a new version of the website coming out soon. I'm not sure if I've covered on the refuel before, if it's been teased before, but yeah, that's hopefully coming out sooner rather than later, which will make the website, the app, and the interfaces a lot better from what I hear. But yeah, you can check out the improvements in this thread, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. Next up, we have something that I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about because I've had an experience with this recently. So the Ethereum on Twitter account announced that they have just gotten an Orange Pi 5 in sync with Geth and Lighthouse, and this is the hardware that they ran. An Orange Pi 5, 16GB of RAM edition. Sync time was 27 hours. The database size is just under a terabyte, and this device, the device as the board costs 139 euros here, not including obviously a disc. I believe that you'll have to buy that separately. But yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, 139 euros for an all-in-one device here that includes 16 gig of RAM, and then you buy an SSD. Maybe it's a 2 terabyte SSD. Not sure how much those are in the US, and I don't even know the prices in AUD right now, but they're not that expensive anymore. And I'm talking about NVMe SSD that you can kind of plug in and then run that here. Now, this is really cool, just another low-power device that's able to run an Ethereum full node and validators. But the reason why I thought it was topical to talk about was because I've had an experience lately which I want to share with you guys regarding a low-powered device. So you guys know I got the Proteus device, that orange box, little orange box with the Daily Gwei faceplate on it that I posted to Twitter before, and that box is basically a ROC 5B board that's been preloaded with an image that allows you to easily set up a rocket pool node. Now what I've done is, and it's an all-in-one device, it includes solid state drive and all the good stuff that you need there. But what I've done is I've basically re-imaged it. I put on a fresh kind of image of Ubuntu server, and then I've installed I've installed Solo validators on there, and it is the box that I'm using to stake my retirement funds on. Now I've been doing that for a little while, and just recently, what ended up happening was that I was noticing that my retirement fund validators, my Solo validators, were randomly missing attestations. And for the life of me, I could not figure it out. Like, I had tried so many different things. I was looking at the firewall stuff, just general networking things. I was wondering if there was kind of a problem with my ISP, but it wasn't happening on any of my other boxes. It wasn't happening on my Solo box or my Rocket Pool box. So I was like, okay, maybe it's got to do with the Proteus hardware. Maybe after all, this hardware can't run validators as effectively as other hardware can. Well, long story short, after doing all that troubleshooting, I ended up figuring out that the issue actually lied within the unmanaged network switch that I was using. That is a Ubiquity device, but it's one of their cheaper switches that I had just gotten for connecting devices that didn't require a lot of bandwidth to. But in the mix, and because I don't really keep as good of a track of what's of my networking as I should have, I inadvertently connected my Proteus box, my Rocket Pool ODAO box, and my archive node box to the same like little shitty unmanaged switch, and it was overloading the poor thing, right? Because you can imagine the amount of bandwidth that 3 EL-CL combos is taking up. It's a lot. Just to give you some context here, I have 4 total EL-CL combos going. So I have my Proteus, my Rocket Pool box, my archive box, and my Solo box, and it's using about 500 gig a day, which is 15 terabytes a month, and that's not including the rest of the stuff on my network, obviously all the other stuff that's going on, all the Wi-Fi devices, everything like that. So it's using a lot of bandwidth. Now, I was feeding 3/4 of that into this one little switch, so of course I upgraded the switch to a much better one. And it's been fine ever since. It wasn't the Proteus box, and the Proteus box has actually been incredible in terms of resiliency. And now that it's all well and good with the bandwidth issues, it is at 99% effectiveness. Getting 100% is always going to be very, very difficult for a variety of different reasons. But it is at 99%, and pretty much 99% of my attestations now have a 0 inclusion delay, and I'm not missing any attestations at all. So just like a TLDR there on my experience with low power hardware, not this device exactly that's on my screen, but a ROC 5B board that I've discussed before, it worked really, really well. And it's worked well ever since I fixed that issue a few days ago. And as I said, I haven't missed any attestations. And it's so awesome because the box is literally sitting in front of me on my desk. Right here, this little box. It is honestly so small, guys. Like, it could fit anywhere. It could be mistaken for a little network streaming box. Or, sorry, I should say a streaming box, like an Apple TV or something like that. It's not as small as an Apple TV. It's maybe double the size height-wise. But yeah, it's super small. And it's just sitting there. It's just got USB-C power running to it with an Ethernet cable. And that's all that's plugged into it. And then I can SSH into it on my home network and manage it all through that. And as I said, it has been amazing. The only thing that I could possibly knock it for is that it takes a little bit longer to upgrade, because I recently did the upgrades for the Shapella fork, a little bit longer to upgrade and make the software than my Solo box. But my Solo box is completely overkill. It's got high-end parts in it, and it's not that much faster. So yeah, but everything else works fine. I've rebooted it a bunch of times. It automatically spins everything back up again, my validators, my full nodes and everything, and it runs perfectly fine. So if you are in the market for, a hardware to be a Rocket Pool mini pool on or to solo validate, I would suggest seeing if you could get your hands on a Proteus for Rocket Pool mini pools because it comes preloaded with everything you need. But if you want to put solo validators on it, you can buy a Rock 5B board and do it all yourself and get really into it if you'd like, or you can buy an Orange Pi 5 as well because that apparently works for this too. But that was just my experience with things. Just really funny how it was the switch in the end because I was actually working with Age Manning from the Sigma Prime team. He was a champion, by the way. Like I kept annoying him like every day. I'm like, dude, like I don't know what's wrong, and then he was giving me all these troubleshooting steps because I'm using Lighthouse, the client on there, and yeah, he was telling me all this stuff, and I learned a ton about things, and we just couldn't figure it out. And then eventually, I'm like, hey man, like yeah, it was the switch. And then he's like, oh geez, that was like, it's not something you think of really, that's an issue there. But it was. And I don't think it was the switch itself that was the issue. I think it was the fact that I was just overloading it with a huge amount of bandwidth, and the poor thing couldn't handle it, right? But anyway, I'm going to leave that one at that. Just a little story that I figured was worth sharing with you guys from my experience, because I'm running a lot of different software right now for validating on a lot of different clients. My network, I'm lucky that I have a gigabit internet with unlimited data, so I can do all this and not have to worry about that. But of course, you need to make sure your networking gear is up to scratch, and it is now. The rest of my network works perfectly fine. As I said, my entire network is running on Ubiquiti gear, which for those of you who don't know what that is, it's high-end networking gear. It's really friendly to use. It's got a really nice interface. It's not like your classic router interfaces that you may be used to that like really suck and are just really bare bones. They call it the Unify interface is really, really good. So not trying to shill you on or anything. I'm not paid by Ubiquiti to shill it, but it is very great networking gear once you've got all the right parts and you're using it correctly. But anyway, moving on from that, last subject on Ethereum staking, Seawolf, which is one of Swell's testnets, has gone live on Goerli. You can now test Swell's new architecture and see the slick new interface in action. And there's a how to participate article that they've put out here. It's very short and it's got links to everything you need. And then they've also asked when mainnet. They're expecting mainnet to go live in April 2023, of course. So right around the time when withdrawals are live. So just a shout out there about Swell. You can go check it out for yourself. It'll be linked in the YouTube description below. All right, so a big announcement out of EigenLayer. So they have announced that they've raised a $50 million funding round, a Series A round led by Blockchain Capital, with participation from a bunch of other funds and VCs here. Now, of course, I need to disclose that I participated in this round, but any of you guys who've been hearing me talk about EigenLayer for many months now would not be surprised by that, because I do believe EigenLayer is a really, really innovative and cool product that's coming to the Ethereum ecosystem. Now, I know that there are certain views on this, and there are people that I've spoken to, a few of them at ETH Denver, that have reservations about EigenLayer and for multiple different reasons, and I totally kind of understand that. I totally understand the reservations here, but I look at this and I'm like, you know what? I think this is a really cool, novel thing that I want to see built within the Ethereum ecosystem. If it works as advertised, great. If it doesn't work, well, at least we tried. I'm all for experimentation. You guys know that. I love experimentation within the Ethereum ecosystem, even if it doesn't end up being anything serious down the line. It doesn't end up actually working. Now, of course, I don't believe that about EigenLayer. I believe that what they're building is going to be a really big part of the Ethereum ecosystem with restaking, with being able to spin up various different services. Because of that, you guys know I've talked about being able to set up really cool data availability committees, Oracle networks, any kind of thing that needs security and that doesn't want to have to bootstrap it itself and can get that security from restaked ETH, for example, I think is very cool. But yeah, I guess congrats to EigenLayer on this round. Really, really great to see that they were able to raise, a lot of money in a bear market, to be fair, right? This will give them a ton of runway to execute on their vision here. And it's funny because EigenLayer, it's not new now, I guess, but it is relatively new on the scene. It's obviously not live yet. It's obviously a novel idea and something that has been in research and development phase for quite a while. But in terms of the project actually being very public, that's relatively new as well. And I think that with this new round of funding, they're going to be able to hire the people that they need to hire, be able to get to mainnet earlier than they otherwise anticipated, and they've got a lot of really cool people and firms helping them out. As I said, there are a bunch of firms that that participated in this round, and there are a bunch of angel investors as well alongside me. Some really cool people like Tim Byko and Victor Bunin here, as you can see named, and there were a bunch of others, but they're not named here, so I'm not gonna name them, of course. But there were a lot of people that were part of this round, and they'll be able to help EigenLayer with whatever skills that they have there. So yeah, I guess once again, congrats to EigenLayer on this raise, and I can't wait to see them build out their protocol. All right, another, I guess, protocol that raised recently that I thought was really interesting, that I wasn't a part of this round, just a disclosure there as well, but they're called Conduit. And now they raised and announced themselves at the same time. So what Conduit is basically, they're calling themselves a crypto native infrastructure platform. You can launch a rollup in just a few clicks using the OP stack. Now, I've talked about a few of these solutions before, such as Stack and Network and Sovereign, and a few others out there that basically allow you to spin up a rollup relatively quickly, and essentially spin up a rollup as easy as it is to spin up an ERC-20 token, for example, right? Now, as I said, this is built on the OP stack, powered by Optimism, of course, and it's already live on mainnet, and you can already use it. This is not something that is coming in 6-12 months. This is something that can already be used by anyone, developers, hobbyists, whoever wants to use it can use it. Now, I did mention that they raised as well. They raised a $7 million round led by Paradigm, with a participation from a bunch of other investors, of course. But yeah, this is very cool because, as I say here, the Conduit OP chains are secured by Ethereum, operated and maintained by Conduit's team of professionals, and they come equipped with block explorers, transaction tracers, auto-scalable RPCs, and more here. And it'll be integrated into the Optimism superchain with rollups like Base. I've talked about Optimism superchain before, where essentially they want to make like an ecosystem of different OP chains that all talk to each other as part of this super chain, all secured by Ethereum. And I think that something like this was obviously needed on top for that vision to be realized, because if people are going to build their own application-specific chains and they're going to use the OP stack to do that, well, you need to make it as easy as possible to do that. And that's exactly what Conduit does here. And this got me thinking as well, because remember how DYDX actually said that they wanted to have more control over their, I guess, rollup, and they wanted to be able to decentralize it and stuff like that, and they weren't able to do that at the time with StarQuest technology, and now they're doing a Cosmos chain. Well, I mean, now they can do it with an OP chain with Conduit, right? They don't even have to really do anything, and their Cosmos chain, as far as I know, isn't going live until the end of the year. And I shouldn't say Cosmos chain, I should say the kind of Cosmos SDK Tendermint chain, but from what I know, it won't go live to the end of the year, whereas they could get it up and running with Conduit in a much shorter time frame from what I can tell here. And I'm sure someone will do that. Not DYDX specifically, but someone will do a similar kind of perp exchange on the OP stack here. And I guess, like, on that note as well, don't be kind of like fooled. This is a competitor to the Cosmos ecosystem. I think rollups in general are competitors to layer ones on the execution side of things, but in terms of actually competing directly with an ecosystem, well, the Cosmos ecosystem is all about having app chains, specifically sovereign app chains, which I'm kind of bearish on generally. I don't think that most applications, or pretty much all of them, need sovereignty. So this is a competition to that, in competition to that, basically, where you can spin up these Conduit chains. They aren't fully sovereign like you would get from a Cosmos chain, but as I said, I don't think most things need that. They're secured by Ethereum. They use Bradle-tested code base like OP stack, and they allow for the instant pluggability into the Optimism superchain, which can benefit from shared interoperability with other ecosystems such as Base, such as the Optimism network, which is obviously very, very cool. But anyway, enough on Conduit. You can go check them out for yourself. I'll link their thread in the YouTube description below. Right, speaking of L2s, Bartek has put out a thread where he says, big congrats to Polygon for launching their zkEVM. Here are a few things that you may assume about ZK rollups, but you will find here different and should be aware of. So basically, your existing knowledge of ZK rollups may not apply to Polygon's zkEVM, and Bartek did this thread to make sure that you basically know the differences there. Now, the thread also links to a few different things, which of course I'll link in the YouTube description below. But it's obviously using the L2Beat website here to make sure that it's all documented and recorded using their little Rosette feature that I covered the other day, and also their more in-depth risk analysis. So I just wanted to highlight that for you guys to check out. I'll link that in the YouTube description below. All right, so something I came across from the General Galactic Corporation. They've launched something called Skyteller in alpha. So apparently the way this works is that Skyteller will allow you, gives your bank account an ETH address and lets you cash out your crypto directly to your bank. So Skyteller is your personal off-ramp that's easy to set up, reasonable with KYC, super easy to use, and US only for now. So if you go into this to the website here, you can kind of connect your wallet and get started. But as I said, it's US only right now. Basically, what Skyteller, from my understanding, is trying to do, it's trying to make the process of on and off ramping from the fiat world, from the traditional finance world, as absolutely seamless as possible and as integrated within the crypto DeFi, by Ethereum DeFi world as possible, so that essentially you get a very similar experience whether you're interacting with Ethereum DeFi and Ethereum on-chain stuff and the traditional finance world. This is what we need more of. Now, obviously, it's going to have its own, I guess, like drawbacks in that you still need to do KYC, right? You're still at the mercy of the banks themselves and the traditional system itself. They can still, I guess, rug you for whatever reason they want to. It's not decentralized, obviously. But at the end of the day, as long as I think it's a step above what we currently have, it's something worth paying attention to. It's something worth putting your weight behind. And that's exactly why I have highlighted it on the Refuel. Now, you can go read more about them on their website, of course. They've got an FAQ here, I believe, down the bottom. I remember seeing it. No, somewhere. It's somewhere on the website. I was playing around with it the other day, where you can learn more about this. But as I said, it is an alpha, so be sure that you keep that in mind when interacting with it. But just another really cool tool to bridge the DeFi and traditional finance systems. All right, now something very, very cool that I came across, and I actually shared this in the Daily Gwei Discord channel, was something built by Bankerson here, which is the first version of something they're calling zkShield, which is a private multisig with hidden owners. Under the hood, it uses account abstraction and zero-knowledge proofs to keep the signers from being exposed on-chain. Now, I spoke about this a few days ago, if not last week, about how when you set up a multisig, you typically know who's on that multisig in terms of the addresses. Obviously, if the address hasn't been doxed, you won't know who the person is, but you know the addresses here. Well, with this new tool, this zkShield tool that has been developed, you no longer know that. As I said, it is now fully private. There is no signers that are exposed on chain as part of this multisig, this private multisig. This is huge, guys. Like, not just huge from a kind of privacy perspective, but huge from a security perspective as well, because it means that even if you know that something is a multisig, say something is protected by a multisig, you don't actually know who the signers are, right? Now, of course, you can say who the signers are. You can say that publicly, okay, the signers are this, and this person, but you won't be able to map those people to an address, right? To a multisig address. So I think, honestly, overall, it increases security of multisigs like this, and it also makes it easier for everyday people and makes it more worthwhile for them to set up multisigs, because as I spoke about in relation to Vitalik's blog post, where he basically said, his Reddit post, where he basically said that he thinks that multisigs are the most secure way to secure your assets. If you want to have a multisig with, say, one of your parents, maybe your best friend, and maybe one other person that you trust, none of them will be able to see who the other signers are, and it will only be you that knows it. So that solves that issue of having to trust that these other people won't collude with each other. You just simply don't tell them who you don't tell them who they are, and then it's all well and good, right? Unless they somehow figure it out in another way, but it increases security there. And that's what got me really excited when I saw this. I was like, okay, wow, this is really good for that use case in particular. So you can go check this out on GitHub for yourself. I don't believe it's live or anything as an app online yet. I think you can run it locally or something like that. And it's still obviously very early stages here, but it works from what I can tell. So very, very cool. And thanks to Bankersan for developing this and putting this out there. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this myself. All right, so something called the 4626 Alliance has been announced. Now, this alliance is basically being stood up to lead, is an initiative that's been stood up to advance the development of the ERC-4626 standard. Now, the alliance has a bunch of different members from the DeFi ecosystem a part of it, such as Balancer, Maple Finance, MStable, Aztec Network. There's Alchemex. There's a bunch of different logos here that you can check out, but ERC-4626 is one of the coolest standards within DeFi because it's the standard for tokenized vaults, which is what a lot of DeFi uses for things like yield generation, right? And you can check out ERC-4626.info for more information about the alliance itself and more of the members and funds that they've raised and how they're actually, how 4626 is supercharging the DeFi ecosystem and how they're all working together. The website's actually pretty information dense and you can get a lot of information about it here with a bunch of news and things as well. So I'll link that in the YouTube description below. But great to see this. Great to see that there's more initiatives, more alliances being stood up within DeFi, within all these different protocols. I think that DeFi, as I've said plenty of times before on the Refuel, it's kind of like a thing that is there. We know it's going to be big, but it's not very exciting for most people. And I said this a long time ago on the Refuel, basically in the earliest days of the Refuel, where I said that DeFi is going to be the biggest use case for Ethereum, for crypto, but it is going to be one of the least exciting ones. So after the initial DeFi summer happened, since then, DeFi hasn't really been viewed as an exciting thing because it's really just core infrastructure that needs to be built to enable so many other things, right? And because of that, and you basically have this ecosystem that's built on the kind of ground floor that everyone uses, but they aren't necessarily excited about, which I think is a healthy thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but that doesn't surprise me at all. And this is one of those things, right? No one's excited about a 4626 Alliance because they can't really speculate on it, right? And it's something that seems relatively boring, but there's going to be a lot of people that use this because they want the yield, they want to play around with these protocols, they want to use them, they want to make money, and that's enabled by things like this, like these alliances. So, I mean, I'm personally excited about it, but people don't get excited about DeFi like they do NFTs, right, for example. And as I said, that's totally fine. But anyway, you can check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, last thing I wanted to talk about was a reply that I gave in a thread here about layer 2 fees. Now, I'm talking about this because someone in the Daily Gwei Discord channel wanted me to talk about it, but basically someone asked me, why do you think EIP-4844 is a good upgrade for ETH when it reduces ETH value accrual and gives L2s a free ride on Ethereum security? Don't you think ETH stakers should be compensated for their risk/service? And I replied by saying, because if Ethereum doesn't scale, then nothing else really matters, right? Also, I don't think L2s are free riding. Their data will expire after a month, and if they want to keep it, they'll have to store it themselves. Most of ETH's value accrual does not come from fee revenue, in my opinion. Now, there are 3 statements there. I'm going to break each one down. The first one, me saying, if Ethereum doesn't scale, then nothing else really matters. I mean, that I think is pretty obvious to everyone at this stage. It's all well and good for Ethereum to be valuable and for ETH to be valuable based on things like being a store of value and stuff like that. But Ethereum as a platform is not like the Bitcoin network. The Bitcoin network doesn't want to really do anything else, or at least most people don't want the Bitcoin network to do anything else except secure BTC. There are some things that are happening on there with Taproot and the ordinal stuff, but really, no one or most Bitcoiners do not want the Bitcoin network to be anything like the Ethereum network, and you know that in any aspect, in aspects of executing complex transactions and scaling and all that sorts of stuff, whereas Ethereum is totally different. Ethereum needs to scale, and we are scaling, don't get me wrong. Obviously, we're scaling, but if it doesn't scale, then I don't think anything else we're doing matters. It doesn't matter how cool we make proof of stake. It doesn't matter how much value how much value capture, or how good we design ETH as a value capture token. None of that matters, right? Scaling is what matters. I think pretty much like as the number one thing, at least for the foreseeable future. So hopefully that, I think, is relatively obvious. The second statement I said here, I said that I don't think L2s are free riding in a post ERP-4844 world because their data will expire after a month. Now, with 4844, it introduces a new transaction type called blob transactions, and that effectively replaces call data, and it will be where the rollups store their call data on. Now, it's not stored on Ethereum Layer 1 forever. It's not stored on the full nodes forever. It's only stored for a month. And if you want to keep that data longer than a month, what you have to do is essentially download it yourself, right? You can store it yourself. Anyone can store the data themselves, or the L2s themselves have to store it if they want to access it as well. That means that they're not free riding. They're actually getting like a kind of a trade. We're basically saying to the L2s, hey, you can have really cheap transactions and really cheap block space on Ethereum, but we're only going to give you that for a month. And then after a month, your data needs to be stored by you if you want to keep it. So I don't think there's any free riding happening here, really. It's just it's a kind of trade, right? It's a mutual trade, I believe, in terms of giving the L2s something that they want and then saying to them, but there's like an asterisk there. We're not going to store the data forever because that would obviously bloat the chain and make and the costs of people running full nodes would be greater than what they are today, and that's part of the trade-off space there. So that's why I don't think they're free riding. And then finally, I said I don't believe most of ETH's value accrual comes from fee revenue, and I've said this multiple times on the refuel before. Even though I'm super excited about ERP-1559 and deflationary ETH, and I'm always very excited to see that the Ethereum block space is being used and people are paying for it, that's all well and good. But primarily, I believe ETH's value comes from being a store of value and accruing monetary premium. Now, obviously, the fee revenue can feed into that. It can make it more valuable, but it's not the primary driver of that. And I think ETH's used as collateral within DeFi, ETH's used as money, ETH's used as a staking asset. Those are all above in terms of my list, right? Number 1, store of value. 2, monetary properties. 3, collateral. 4, I guess it's used as money. And then 5 would be fee revenue. Maybe 4 and 5 can be switched, but generally that's why I don't believe I don't believe that most of ETH's value accrual comes from its use as a fee token. And I believe that the burn and deflationary ETH is really just a bonus. And what it does is it makes it creates a symbiotic relationship between the people who use the network and the people who secure the network, the validators, and which are ETH holders, obviously, as well. So that's how I view that. But yeah, I could go on about this for a lot longer, but I've gone over time here, so I don't want to kind of bore you with the intricate details, but that's how I view these things, and hopefully that was a good breakdown for Tiki Torture, I believe, in the Discord channel, who asked me to cover this. So yeah, anyway, on that note, that's going to be it for today's episode. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.